I call the September 3rd, 2024 regular meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners to order. At this time, I would like to recognize Commissioner Melissa Merrill to provide the invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity for us to come together as an elected body in service to Union County, North Carolina. We ask you, Lord, for wisdom and strength to always do what's your will for the constituents of Union County. And we just praise you and thank you for your many, many blessings. And we thank you for all of those in service, for everyone that takes care of our community and our state and our nation. We lift all of this up in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is informal comments from the community. Each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County and indicating the municipality within which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers may not discuss matters which are the subject of public hearings, and they must be courteous in their language and presentation. Restatements or repetitive comments by the same speaker, whether at the same or separate meetings, may be ruled out of order and terminated by the chair. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Speakers may leave written comments and/or supporting documents, if any, with the clerk to the board. Our first speaker is Sarah Jewell.
Hi, my name is Sarah Jewell. I'm from Weddington, North Carolina. I've lived here for about over 20 years. And I'm speaking tonight about a couple things that I hear over and over in the community since I've lived here. When I lived here, I think one of the first times I came to the board, it was Tracy and Kim were on the board. It's a long time ago. There was a bond that was passed for the schools that we all voted on, but it wasn't collected for the schools. They didn't enforce it. I think there was a recession, so then I think it was the school board eventually got angry, the parents got angry, and then they sued the commissioners, and then they, I don't know all the details, but they settled with the commissioners, and there was a settlement. And again, I don't think the schools got what they were doing. This is like Cliff Notes here. But I've been here a long time. When I moved here, I mean, the schools are definitely our baby here. I mean, like, people are proud of Union County schools, and they should be. My kids have been educated. My son is what they call a baby at UNC Medical School. He went right from ECU Honors College to med school. My daughter's on in-state tuition at South Carolina, and it's not because of me. I stopped helping them in the 3rd grade. It's because of their teachers. They've been incredible, and people tell me all the time, oh, there's such bad books, there's such bad teachers. I'm like, you're talking to the wrong person, because I don't agree with a word you said. People go from the school board to the commissioner's office. They have a direct line to Raleigh. We need you guys to fight for the schools. We don't need vouchers in the schools. We don't need to defund these schools. There's teachers all over social media saying after they get paid, after they pay their daycare, they got $500. So they're not teaching anymore. They're staying home. You know what they're doing? They're tutoring kids that don't have math teachers. They have permanent subs. So people are paying $60, $50 an hour for a tutor because they don't have a teacher because of all the vacancies. And I know we say, oh, it comes from Raleigh, it comes from there, we're fighting for the teachers. I'm just not seeing it. And I know you all are very powerful and you have friends in Raleigh, and I can't do anything. So that's just one of the issues I'm here talking about, but that's really dear to my heart. It should be dear to everyone's house, whether you homeschool, charter, private school, it doesn't matter. These are our schools, they should be funded. Whether you send your kids to them or not, I really don't care. And another issue I want to talk about is animal welfare. There was a lot of talk about someone locally. My daughter was a big horseback rider here in Union County for many years, and a big problem you guys have is feral dogs. If you know anything about horseback riding, if you're riding and a dog comes upon your daughter or your child and they're going really fast at a jump or an arena, that can like spook a horse and kill your rider or hurt them. And there was someone here recently that had a donkey that was pregnant that was eaten by feral dogs. I mean, this problem has been going around forever. Another problem I don't see any action on. I don't understand why there isn't a Union County leash law. You have 10 acres, keep your dogs on your property. If they go off, you're responsible if they hurt someone. So that's just something I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for year 2026 Combined Capital Transportation Grant Application. I will open the public hearing and recognize Teresa Torres, Transportation Director, for comments from the county staff.
Good evening. This public hearing is on transportation's combined capital. The funding request is for 2026 and will cover the replacement of 5 20-foot light transit vehicles with wheelchair lifts for a total request of $688,205, which includes 80% federal funding at $550,564 and county funds of a maximum of 20% of $137,641. If the state funding is awarded, the county is expected only for their 10%, which is $68,820, and a state share of also $68,821. The 2026 grant application for combined capital funds is due October 4th and will cover a 1-year period of performance from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th of 2026. Vehicles funded by this grant and authorized in the FY 2026 budget will be purchased usually using North Carolina state contract. If vehicles cannot be purchased utilizing a North Carolina state contract, they will be purchased pursuant of applicable laws and policies. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, has anybody signed up to speak at the public hearing? All right. We're going to have several public hearings this evening so that we did not have to repeat this statement for each public hearing. The following statement applies to all the public hearings that we'll be holding tonight. Each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County and indicating the municipality with which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. The speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers shall limit their remarks to the subject of the public hearing. Speakers may leave written comments and or supporting documents, if any, with the clerk to the board. We have no speakers signed up for the public hearing. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on the subject of the public hearing? I'll now close the public hearing. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for year 2026 5311 Administrative Non-Urbanized Area Formula Program Grant Application. I will open the public hearing and again recognize Teresa Torres, Transportation Director, for comments from the county staff.
Union County Transportation's 5311 application is submitted only for administrative expenses, which help fund 4 positions within transportation. The funding does not include operational components. The county's 5311 administrative funding level for 2026 will be $260,877, which includes 80% federal funding of $208,701 and county funds of a maximum of 20%, which is $52,176. If state funding is awarded, the expected 5% of $13,043, then the local share would reduce to 15%, which is $39,133. The FY 2026 grant application for 5311 administrative funds is due October 4th, 2024, and will be cover 1-year performance period from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th of 2026.
Madam Clerk, has anybody signed up to speak at this public hearing? Since no one has signed up, is there anyone here who wishes to speak that is not signed up in regards to this public hearing? I will now close the public hearing. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing, FFY 22-5307 Urbanized Area Formula Funding Application. I will open the public hearing and again recognize Teresa Torres, Transportation Director, for the comments from county staff.
Promise this is the last one for tonight. The 53O funds allocated to Charbon urbanized areas are distributed using a formula that considers population, bus fleet, and transit service provided in its urbanized area outside of Charlotte, which includes the remainder of Mecklenburg County, Iredell County, York County, and Union County. Based on the current distribution formula created by Charlotte Area Transit System and approved by Charlotte Regional Transportation System, Union County will receive $1,220,758. Operational funds will be used to cover passenger trips in urban areas and other operational expenses. The federal portion of the operating expenses is $587,668 with a 50% local match. The capital portion of the 5307 grant will be used for the design and construction of current building, optimizing space to accommodate current staffing and future growth needs. We will also use capital for PM maintenance and 1% mandatory security. The federal capital portion is $633,090, and the local share is $126,618. It is an 80-20 split.
Madam Clerk, has anybody signed up for this public hearing? We have no speaker signed up for the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on the subject of this public hearing who's not signed up to speak? I will now close the public hearing. The next item on the agenda is item 24-598, a public hearing for the Carr Family Historic Designation. This will be a joint public hearing. This will be a hearing just with Union County tonight. There's not enough people here from the Historic Preservation Commission. I will now recognize Lee Jensen to open the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is the public hearing for the county commissioners for the Carr Farm Historic Landmark Designation. The Preservation Commission received an application from the owner of the Carr Family Farm to consider designating those two parcels as a historic landmark. Included in the request is the 1961 ranch house, and I've got pictures of these later. The 1961 ranch house, the tractor shed, the farm office, and the tool shed or shop. The Commission conducted a historic survey and research report and has recommended that all of those items be designated as historic landmark. In addition to that, the town of Marvin has passed a resolution in support of designated this property as a historic landmark. The adjacent properties, which you'll see in a second on the map, were designated as a local historic landmark in 2012. And both of those, all of these four properties together make up what remains of the Carr, the original Carr family farm. This picture is the ranch house that I mentioned before. This is just a little bit further back, so this shows what's a portion of the field that used to be part of the Carr family farm and the ranch house behind it. And that's the tool shed. And then the farm office is kind of off to the left of this. Property that's highlighted, the two properties that are highlighted in red are the ones that are the subject of the public hearing tonight. The ones just to the right of that, that my mouse is kind of hovering over there, and then there's a real small one back here in the back. Those are the ones that were designated in 2012. So those four properties together make up what's left of the Carr family farm. And I put this slide in here just to answer some questions that anybody may have. I did get a couple calls about this one. In this case, the landmark designation was at the request of the property owner, so this wasn't the county that went out and asked for this. This was the property owner actually requested this. This is a landmark designation, and it's not a historic district. So this only applies to those two properties that were shown in red. So those two properties there. This is not some large historic district like downtown Monroe or anything like that. There are no rules or regulations over and above existing zoning, which this is inside the town of Marvin, that would apply to adjacent properties. I did verify with Marvin that they didn't have any rules that would apply to adjacent properties as far as buffering or screening or anything like that. The designated property, if it's designated, would need to obtain a certificate of appropriateness for any work performed on the house. So if, some modification needed to be done to this house, they would need to obtain that certificate from the Historic Preservation Commission. Again, that only applies to the properties that are designated as landmarks. Once designated, the property is eligible for a tax deferment of up to 50% of the portion of the property deemed historic. There's actually a separate application process for that through the tax office, and that works much like the farm program, where it's 50%, but then if you come out of it, there's a 3-year kind of look back on that. And the property's still in private ownership, and the owner can restrict access to that. So it's not like a museum where folks can drive up and pay an admission fee and go walk around the property. It's still privately owned, privately maintained. People just can't go walk around. That's all the information I have on this. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. The property owner is here, so she could probably provide some more insight on the property. Questions for me?
I have a question. So is it currently being used for farming, or is this primarily just a residence, a 1960 residence at this point?
I believe it's a residence, but I'll defer that question to the property owner.
Okay. And can you walk us through, because we've never, I haven't been on the board since we've had a request like this. Other than the tax issue, have we had other requests from farmers to do this? How often do we do this? And why does it come to the county and not the town? And
Sure. We don't have many of them, to be honest with you. We did have one back in, I think it was April.
Okay.
It was the Kilo Family Farm up
Yes.
on Old Charlotte Highway, the one that has the stuff at Halloween.
That's right.
So that one was designated as a historic landmark.
Okay.
Because the Historic Preservation Commission is under, I guess, and Jason, you might need to help me with this, because it's under the county, the county commissioners are the body that designates as a historic landmark. I think Monroe has their own separate rules and authority, so they can actually designate themselves, but all the other towns fall under the umbrella of the county in that regard. We do ask that the municipalities, if it's located in a municipality, that they adopt a resolution in support. So that's why you have the resolution for Marvin.
Okay, thank you.
But there are not many. This is kind of rare that we've had two in this short of a time
Right.
period.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Lee, I've got one question. So how does this designation affect the resale of the property in the future? So if it's still private property, it can be resold,
Sure.
correct?
Yes. A buyer could purchase that property as long as it stayed in as long as it stayed designated as a local historic landmark. I would assume, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, that they could keep that tax deferment. If they ever came out of the historic landmark designation, then there is that 3-year look back. Much like a farm property, if they came out of the ag program, there's that 3-year look back on that one as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Clerk, has anybody signed up to speak at this public hearing? Is anyone here that has not signed up that wishes to speak at the public hearing? I'll now close the public hearing.
I think
Oh,
we
I'm
had-
sorry.
I think we did have one person.
Step on up, ma'am. Come on up.
I'm bashful.
No, don't be. We're glad to hear from you.
I'm Paulette Carr, I'm the owner of this property, and the main reason is all the development around me. So I'd like to keep it historic, what's left of the Carr Farm. So that's my main interest. I'm in a little cesspool of them, and I don't want them in there. So anyway, they've all been nice, and I don't have any real complaints. But for my father and my brother Don Carr, I'd like to keep it that way. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for being here tonight.
The next item on our agenda is a public hearing concerning a Step 2 Economic Development Grant for Sherteco North America Incorporated, doing business as Omnova Project Pulsar. I will open the public hearing and recognize Ron Mell, EDC Interim Director, for this item. Mr. Mell.
Chairman Rao, Commissioners, Manager Matthews, it's my pleasure to bring before you tonight an Economic Development Incentive Grant request by Sherteco North America Incorporated, otherwise referred to as Project Pulsar. Sherteco designs, manufactures, and distributes advanced films and paper used in the production of commercial furniture and flooring systems. The company is best known as Omnova and has been in Union County on Rocky River Road since the late 1970s. Sherteco, a German-based manufacturer, purchased Omnova in 2023 and is now considering a sizable investment at their Union County location. The project under consideration is a $10 million investment in new manufacturing equipment. This state-of-the-art equipment will enable the company to advance its quality to the highest level demanded by its current and targeted new customers. The project is anticipated to create 15 new full-time positions at the Rocky River Road location, bringing employment there up to a total of 103. The new jobs would pay an average of $24 per hour. Our office and the company began discussing this project. Tonight, we're requesting your consideration of a Step 2 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $190,000 paid over 5 years, based upon the Union County Tax Office's appraised value each year on the company's anticipated investment of $10 million in new equipment. Based on this investment and holding all other factors constant, including depreciation, the company would pay estimated ad valorem taxes on this new taxable investment of $294,000 over the grant period. When we factor in depreciation, the grant adjusts to $161,120, and the tax revenues adjust to $249,312 over that same grant period. Of course, actual tax revenue to Union County will be based on the current tax rate applied to the assessed value of the investment each year. As we do with all of our projects, we performed a cost-benefit analysis, and this project shows a 1.83 to 1 return over the first 5 years of the project or the grant period, and that increases to 3.23 to 1 over the life of the project. Therefore, the Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission staff recommend the award of this Step 2 performance-based economic development incentive grant to Sherteco North America in an amount not to exceed $190,000 to help secure this $10 million investment. At this time, it's my pleasure to recognize Mr. Rick Hurd, who is plant manager, and Claire Turpak, who is Senior Human Resources Generalist there at Sherteco, who are available to answer any questions you might have, as am I. So with that, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Just a quick question, Ron. I just want to make sure I jotted this down correctly. You said that the total number of associates there at Omnova was 103, that this would add 15 new positions?
With the 15, it would bring it up to 100.
Up to 100, okay. And we're looking at, I think you said $24 an hour for average wage?
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Obviously, some of those a little bit higher,
Sure.
but the average 24.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, has anybody signed up to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone who hasn't signed up that would like to speak at this public hearing? Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing. Thank y'all for being here tonight and for doing business in Union County.
Thank you for hearing us.
The next item on the agenda is item 24605, recognize Lifesaver Award recipient. However, the honoree was not able to be with us tonight, so we're going to move that recognition to a further meeting. The next item is consideration of the agenda and consent agenda. Are there any motions regarding revisions or amendments to either the consent agenda or the business agenda?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move item 24-606, the item for the budget amendment, additional communicable disease funding, to business for further discussion, please.
Any discussion? Any discussion on the Vice Chair's motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Any discussion? All in favor of the amended motion indicate by aye. Aye. We are now at the business portion of our agenda. The first item of business is item 24-614. Consider a step 2 economic development incentive grant for Certeco North America Incorporated, doing business as Omnova Project Pulsar in the amount of, or not to exceed, $190,000 over a 5-year period. I will again recognize Ron Mail, EDC Interim Director, for this item.
Again, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, available to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Mail? I'll make the motion that we move forward with this grant. That we award a Step 2 Economic Development Incentive Grant in the amount not to exceed $190,000 over a 5-year period, and authorize the county manager to negotiate and execute an agreement substantially consistent with this item. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The next item of business is item 24-600, the appointment of 2 ETJ members to the Town of Wingett's Joint Land Use Board. The positions to be filled have been advertised in accordance with the board's rules of procedures. Applications have been received, and information regarding the vacant positions may be found in the background provided for this item. I will now entertain a motion regarding these appointments.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir. I'll make the motion that we appoint both Myra Tomberlin and also Blair Stigall as the 2 ETJ members to the Town of Wingett's Joint Land Use Board.
Any discussion on the Vice Chairman's motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. Next on our agenda is item 24-602, appointments to boards and committees. The positions to be filled on the boards and committees have been advertised in accordance with the board's rules of procedure. Applications have been received, and information regarding the vacant positions may be found in the background provided for this item. I will now entertain a motion regarding the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir. I'll make the motion that we appoint Mr. Steve Hagler to the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. I will now entertain a motion regarding the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir. I'll make the motion that we appoint the following to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. That would be John Kirkpatrick IV as the member of the Faith Community. Also, James Johnson Jr. as County Commissioner appointee. Monique Holt as County Commissioner appointee. Angela Watkins as the Juvenile Defense Attorney. And then also Kiana Marsh from United Way as a nonprofit.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. I'll now entertain a motion regarding the Adult Care Home Advisory Committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir. I'll make the motion that we appoint Judy Over to the Adult Care Home Advisory Committee.
All in favor of the motion, or correction, any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. The next item on our agenda is item 24-620, resolution supporting the request for legislative goal via the NCACC legislative goals process. I will recognize County Manager Brian Matthews for this item.
Turn this over to Commissioner Helms again.
Vice Chairman Brian Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to bring this item forward. Obviously, as individual commissioners, we're all members of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and they have been seeking legislative goals. This action actually came from our neighbors in Stanley County. So they passed a resolution very similar to the one that is appeared in our agenda packet. And what this proposes is that we support that legislative goal with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners and utilize that as a method to appeal to our state delegation. Ultimately, what this does is this would provide the county a voice for instances where you have municipalities voluntarily annexing property from the county. And I think that it would be good for us to have a voice in this, because ultimately, the county's got strategic plans. We have land use plans, and obviously, certain properties may be more strategic than others, and there's going to be times where annexation does make sense, annexation into a municipality. Not always. But this would at least give the county some say, whereas currently we have zero say in voluntary annexations. And so, with that, I brought this up as a proposed item for the board to consider. I would open it up for feedback from my colleagues and hopefully make the motion to accept this resolution.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't be able to support this resolution, but I am sympathetic, I know, with Commissioner Helms, and I think what he's trying to achieve with this. I think we want a lot of the same things in terms of how we can encourage and influence as best we can patterns of development. But, I think, when you're talking about annexation, it's, history matters. And 12 to 13, I think it was about 13 years ago, the North Carolina General Assembly passed some significant annexation reform where they made it extraordinarily difficult. And I think they did the right thing, but they made it extraordinarily difficult for municipalities to involuntarily annex properties into their municipal boundaries. And like I said, I think that's a good thing. But what we're talking about here is not, involuntary. We're talking about voluntary annexation, where a town and one or more property owners have agreed. These parties have agreed to an annexation. And I think we need to take great care when, we try to interfere with two or more parties that are all agreed about an annexation. I think we need to take great care when we're discussing property rights. I know all of us up here are big defenders of property rights. And property rights and adjudicating those are, I think, one of the main reasons, one of the big reasons why the United States has been so successful and prosperous for over 2 centuries. So again, I laud, I think, what I understand to be the objective here, but I'm going to have to vote no, because we're, again, dealing with voluntary annexation, and this is a reasonable path for towns to take when they're in agreement with property owners about an annexation. And the last thing that I'll add too is when properties are being developed for, you know, when property is being residentially developed, those properties are going to require services. And to the extent that those properties are inside a municipality, you know, that municipality can, you know, serve those new residents where, you know, otherwise the county taxpayers would be carrying more of that burden. So again, I laud, I think, what I understand to be the objective here, but I'm going to have to vote no on this one. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly respect Commissioner Williams' comments. What I'll say is that, again, as I mentioned, sometimes this does make sense for annexation to occur. But I would argue that that's not always the case. You know, we ourselves have been involved in this where we have allowed annexation of county property into the city. So I think that in some cases, it very much does make sense where perhaps utilities are involved and other services may be involved. However, I also think that it makes sense for us to have a voice too in these discussions. I think that it makes sense if we're going to develop strategic plans for the county as a whole, for us to be able to be involved in some way, shape, or form, you know, where these discussions may take place or where a certain property may fall along the lines of some kind of strategic planning like roadways or, you know, other things that the county has in mind. And so, you know, with that, I certainly respect your comments, but I believe that this is the right course. I believe that this is the right thing to support at this point in time. And I will make the motion that we adopt that resolution supporting the request for and consideration of a legislative goal related to municipal voluntary annexation via the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners legislative goal process.
Now, Mr. Vice Chair, let me ask you a question. Now, this is a legislative goal of the NCACC, is that correct? That's something that they have set as their goal?
No, sir. So what this is we would be supporting an existing goal from another county for the same item. So we are essentially saying that we as a board are in agreement with the resolution passed by another North Carolina county that has taken this through the legislative process with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners.
Just a resolution supporting that county only?
And this initiative. So we're saying that we are in agreement with that.
Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions?
And I want to confirm, you said that was Stanley County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other discussions? Commissioner Balkin?
Yes, I will support the resolution. I'm just coming through the budget season. It's a real battle not to raise taxes, and oftentimes this growth puts different strains on the schools, the roads, emergency services. And if we have to raise taxes, that would definitely impact everyone in the county. So for that reason, I'll stand in support of the resolution.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
I will now recognize the county manager for his comments. Okay, that's right.
The consent item.
Item number 24606, the item that was moved off consent.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Dennis, for being here. I want to make this clear. I didn't ask for this item to be removed off of consent because I disagree with the premise here. It seems like we discussed this before, probably in 2023, a very similar item where we had funding coming in from, as I understand it, the federal and state governments for medical services for refugee health. And I want to be clear, too, that the reason why I asked for this item to be pulled is because, not because I disagree with offering medical services for refugees or for anyone else for that matter, but honestly, Dennis, I'd like to learn more about the program. And I left the previous discussion with some of the same questions I still have now. So, reading through our agenda packet, one thing that stuck out to me is what it said, that it said this is an agreement for local health departments with consistent and significant number of refugee arrivals. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get additional information as to, as I understand this, I want confirmation this is a federal program, and we are getting dollars from the state as it comes down from the federal government to the state to Union County. But I also have questions regarding the number of refugees that are currently in Union County, because when I see agreement for local health departments with consistent and significant numbers, I want data. And so I'd like to have some numbers here about how many refugees were taken in. I'd like to have some numbers about, the cost, because this is a federal funded program that allows for funding for medical services. However, the county has other services that we provide as well. And I understand, that you have to look at things through the lens of your department. And so I'd like to open this up for staff as well, if there's any information here, but there's a cost to serve. And so what I want to eventually try to find out here is the federal and state governments supplementing Union County for the other areas of cost to serve through this program or not? Obviously we've got schools that have to be funded. We have law enforcement that has to be funded. We have EMS, we have fire, we have all these other services aside from medical. And, we're looking at $47,100 just for medical services. The fact that we're getting even more money, for this, it just raises some questions. And so I would appreciate any information that you might have on the program that you might can share with us.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. I'll try to give you, I'm not an expert in the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, but I'll try to give sort of an overview of how this comes about. The refugee program originates federally, as you already have mentioned. And the North Carolina Office of Refugee Health program is who we work with when there are individuals that have been resettled to our particular area. There's a whole vetting process that goes on with an application process, and I'm not going to do justice to the process, but the vetting process, there's an application, there's an assessment of a supporting sponsor, either an organization or a family or some entity that individuals who are going through that refugee resettlement application process that they review and either grant them the ability to go ahead.
I'm sorry, who reviews this?
That is done through the federal office of, actually, it's Refugee Admissions Program.
Okay, so the federal government would review
yes.
that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so once that information comes to the state, we then, we may get that information saying that, okay, we know that there's someone who's coming to Union County. And one of the conditions for the refugee program, health program, is to do health assessment and screening. And primarily that's to make sure that folks who are coming here have, appropriate immunizations, that they don't have conditions that parasitic infections, tuberculosis, things that would put others at risk here in the community, because oftentimes they're coming from other countries where they don't have the healthcare basis that we have here. So once they arrive, we would get that information. Sometimes that's a call from the North Carolina Office of Refugee Health. Other times it may be that the individual actually would call us to say, we need to get our health assessment done because that's a requirement of their particular program for resettlement. In between October of 23 and June of 24, so that's obviously a little less than a year, Union County had 46, this is information I've got from the state, had 46 known arrivals during that particular period. Now, that is part of this is where it can get confusing, so I want to try to clarify this. There's the refugee program, which may be taking individuals from Haiti, the Congo, all over the world. It may be different places in the world. What has caused the increase for most in North Carolina has been the more recent initiative called Helping for Ukraine. And that is a special effort that went forth as a result of the Ukrainian conflict. And as a result of that particular program, the Uniting for Ukraine, that's where we have seen the biggest jump for us. We're now averaging around 20 health assessments a month for the refugee program, but the bulk of that is related to the Ukraine refugees that are coming through that particular program. Go ahead.
Okay, quick question. So from October 23 to June 24th, we had 46 known arrivals.
Yes.
I want to stop you here before we get too much further. Are there unknown arrivals?
Yeah.
What is the known designation?
That's just the information that the state has provided that they have of known arrivals.
Okay. And so now you say that we are averaging 20 health assessments per month. Now, would that be individual? Like,
Yes, individual health.
like unique?
Yeah,
So one person represents one health assessment?
right.
Okay.
Not like a family, but it would be one individual. A family of three would be three individuals.
So that's, okay, so are we talking about, what kind of time frame are we talking about? Are we talking about from June 24th until present that we're seeing these 20 per month?
We're looking at 20 per month going back for the last 8 months, just looking back over since January of 24. And I can tell you the total number of health assessments that we have provided has grown. In 22, the total we saw was 201 in terms of health assessments. In terms of, in 23, it was 215. And based on what our monthly average is this year, you're looking at probably around 240. So over the last 3 years, in terms of the number of health assessments that we're doing or have done, it's been 200, a little bit over.
Okay, I'm a little confused on the numbers, Dennis. You got to help me out here. So we've got 46 known arrivals in the past, let's just say the past year, but we're getting 200-plus health assessments.
But the known arrivals does not include the Ukrainian
Okay,
program.
okay, all right.
I'm sorry.
Now I'm following you. Okay, because I'm
That's
sitting there
why,
going.
yeah, and
well,
I realize, and actually I even had a conversation with some folks at the state that it's confusing because it's sort of, the numbers are sort of moving, and the United for Ukraine program is viewed separate, is sort of viewed separately as it relates to these particular numbers. So I apologize for not clarifying that.
That's okay. So maybe we should be looking at two different programs then, this one and as well as the United for Ukraine program. Now, are you aware of any kind of funding that United for Ukraine would provide to the counties for other services besides medical services?
I am not familiar with any other levels
Okay,
of funding.
fair enough. Continue.
So the funds, these funds are to offset because they realize that it has increased the workload in terms of the resources that are needed. These assessments are kind of lengthy, and, in order for us to do that, we're checking for various communicable diseases, other kinds of things, running certain tests. And so as a part of that, because they realize we're incurring those costs, and from just a communicable disease control and management standpoint, it is an important thing to do for the community. They're seeking to help support that with these funds, and that's really the impetus of the dollars and why they're here to support that effort, because they realize the numbers have increased some on that U4U program, particularly.
Mr.
Chair. So, Dennis, this is extremely valuable information. I'm so glad this got pulled off so we could learn more about what's going on in our county and other counties, I'm sure, and how these numbers are increasing year over year. Just since we are having this this open conversation, heaven forbid, so you are doing this testing, providing inoculations and everything with the funds that are coming down from the federal, state to the local. So I haven't heard about any communicable disease outbreaks or whatever, but, walk us through, like, this is what you're screening for and this is what you're using the money for?
Yes. As part of this agreement addenda with the North Carolina Refugee Health Program, there's specific screening that goes on, and I can read you this: screening for immunizations on status of arrival and initiation of any vaccines that may be needed, review of TB screening and initiating of any new TB screening that may be needed on arrival, and initiate treatment if needed, because obviously someone that may have active TB needs to be immediately under treatment. Also, hepatitis B is testing for that, and other communicable diseases that there may be, whether that's HIV or other STIs that need to be treated. For children, testing for blood lead levels, because that's also a concern, and following up if indicated for those. So it's screening, but there's a lot of potential follow-up depending on if there's any concerns or something that's a little out of kilter that would need additional follow-up or treatment.
So obviously, this is extremely important work that your team is doing to protect our community, and protect them and our community and our schools and everyone. So for anyone listening at home or whatever, if there were a discovery of a communicable disease, that would be shared or posted where?
Well, if it's a communicable disease that has broad impact on the community, I mean, we see communicable diseases every day, and most of those are things in which we can control.
It's isolated.
It's isolated. The circle of influence of those diseases are very, very small, and it's manageable. Obviously, if it gets broader than that, when you have TB can be an example. If you have an exposure that goes to a broader population, we have to make more people aware of that so that we can manage it and control it and get folks in for treatment if needed. So, but that would be handled this way, I mean, for this group of folks, just like we would normally
And since we
follow.
haven't had anything
Right.
like that,
No
then
no
the
news
pro,
is- yeah.
no
No
news is good
news.
news, and everyone's doing really good work and using this money wisely. Thank you so much.
And Mr. Joyner, how much does it cost us compared to the money we get? Do you know?
I don't know right off the top of my, top
Is
of
it
my
a
head.
lot? You think it would be a lot more compared to what we get? I know this helps, of course, but
well, this is certainly, there are some costs that, we've got a communicable disease budget, and we've got staff that are covered through that, and their scope of work is going to be shared in covering a lot of this kind of work. This funding in particular is going to assist in the biggest way with interpreting, because that's also a big challenge. These are foreign languages that our staff, we need to have good, clear, accurate communication. And so in many cases, we're using a language line, a virtual iPad to have that interaction. Those can be kind of pricey when you have a long session and you're going through that. So interpreting cost is a big one for us as well. Some of the TB testing as well, quantiferon is a type of testing that's done. It's a much more quick, accurate testing. It's not a two-step PPD that you normally get where you have to come back for a second visit. It's a better way of testing in a situation like this for TB. It's kind of costly. So I know I'm walking all around your question in terms of figures, but those are some of the big costs that we see as an increase because of a lot of the numbers that have gone up.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
So Dennis, do we have any idea about where the numbers in Union County and how they compare to other counties in the state? I mean, both
Yep.
with the number of refugees, and then perhaps even the number of screenings that the health department may do. How does that compare with other
Yeah,
counties?
I can tell you, just in terms of looking at the refugee program, and these are those known arrivals, so I realize I'm mixing. So I told you the state had shared that there was 46 during that time frame of October to June of 24. Mecklenburg led North Carolina as the top county, 845. Durham was 651, Guilford 612. Wake, Forsyth, Craven, New Hanover, Buncombe, Wayne, Rowan had 84. We're starting to get closer to where we were at 46. Alamance was 55, and then Union. So as it relates to that initial refugee arrivals, known arrivals, we're sort of in the middle of the pack, so to speak. When you look at the U4U program, these are the folks who have applied. Now, that doesn't mean that they all have arrived yet. They estimate that roughly 50% of folks who have applied and have gotten approved have arrived to the U.S., to their particular locations. But in terms of the numbers for the U4U program, Mecklenburg obviously leads the pack. This is for the period of 4/22 to 7/24. So you're looking at, that's looking at pushing 2 years of information here. But just to look at raw numbers for applications, Mecklenburg had 1,980. Wake had 1,714 applications. Buncombe had 1,321. Union had 1,088. We are the fourth highest as it relates to the U4U program. which is, I think, one of the reasons why we have seen the increased numbers more recently.
And to be clear, this is, the role that the county has to play with this. I mean, we're not like, signing up for this per se. This is something that obviously has come down from the federal government that we're having to react to. So, and I know that you can't answer this, but I'd like to direct this to our staff. I would like to get more information on other sources of funding, for something like this. Whether the federal government is supplying or supplementing the county in other ways other than, say, medical services. And the reason why I bring that up is because, this board has long had a policy of opposing unfunded mandates. And obviously, I understand this is federal government, so, there's not going to be a whole lot that we can do, but I still would like to know, exactly where the numbers lie for other services as well, because there is that cost to serve for other elements other than, say, medical, so.
Any further questions for Mr. Joyner?
I just wanted to say thank you. That was extremely informational, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Dennis, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. And not trying to put you on the spot like 2 years in a row, but, this is just something that I think begs additional information. But with that, I'm not opposed to accepting the $47,100, for the medical services. And at this time, I'll make the motion that we do approve the budget amendment for additional communicable disease funding, so that we do approve 24-606 with one addition to that motion, and that is that we also direct staff to bring us back additional information regarding both the refugee program as well as the U4U program with an emphasis on other sources of supplemental funding for other county services and its direct impact on the county.
Any discussion on the motion of accepting the $47,100 and the additional information from staff? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'll now recognize County Manager Brian Matthews for his comments.
I have no comments. Thank you, sir.
It's now time for the Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Clancy Baldwin.
No comment for the most part. I'm just glad to be getting out here at about 7 o'clock. That's pretty nice, so that's all I got.
Commissioner David Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. I'd like to thank our speaker during informal comments. I welcome comments from all the citizens. I think it's an important part of what we do every regular meeting. So thank you. Also, I'd like to just briefly kind of pivot off of one of our public hearings at the start of the meeting, and specifically the public hearing on 5307 funding that Teresa Torres reviewed for us. And just to kind of tip my hat and applaud the great work of our staff, our senior staff, and occasionally one of us electeds up here, because we had nearly $1.25 million in 5307 funding that we're about to get. And I remember when I came on this board, it was just a little over $250,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that is almost a quintupling of our 5307 federal dollars, which we get every single year, which goes to meet transportation needs in the county every single year. That's a number that grows more, generally every single year. And that was the result of staff and representatives from this board on CARPO, and, to be fair, other stakeholders throughout this region that wanted a change, that demanded a change in the funding formula for 5307. And we got it, and this is the result. So sometimes putting our shoulders into it yields real results. And this is an example that we wouldn't have the $1 million a plus every single year in this federal money had all of us not gotten together and done that. So just a tip of my hat, mainly to our staff that really gently, sometimes and sometimes, a bit more aggressively pushed for a change that was a long time coming. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Merrill.
I just want to wish all of our schools, our students and teachers, administrators, all going back to school. This is probably going to be a big week for a lot of parents and students getting back into the swing of things. And I just want to wish them a very happy, successful school year. And all of those seniors that are getting ready to kick off their 12th grade year, looking for them to do big and bright things this school year, and just looking forward to seeing what all of our students in Union County can accomplish, and wishing them much success. And then just a lot of support to all of the families to have an amazing year and do great things here in Union County.
Vice Chairman Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank our staff, especially Dennis. I appreciate you being willing to put up with our questions this evening. It's not easy, because obviously you guys get late notice sometimes about some of the questions that we may have, and so I do want to tell you thank you. I appreciate that, and you give us some good information. So, again, the reason why I wanted to get that out there is because I feel like we need more information, and I know that you have to look at things through that medical lens, but I think there's a greater picture that we need to have a better understanding on. But certainly appreciate your efforts. Thanks again to all of our staff. Thanks to our speaker tonight. Certainly, appreciate the involvement from the community as well. And with that, just wish everyone a good night.
I'll reiterate what Commissioner Williams said. I tell you, if there's one thing this board likes, it's getting grants, that's for sure. There's not much bad about a good grant, that's for sure. But thanks to all our staff. Teresa, thank you so much for what you do in that transportation stuff. I mean, y'all do so much stuff, it's hard to keep it all straight, I'm telling you. Y'all are amazing. Thank you for all of our county employees, law enforcement, people from the health department, EMS, fire, and my colleagues on the board. I will make a motion that we adjourn from this meeting. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.